All over the planet, in deserts, jungles, mountains, and on nameless windy plateaus, there stand strange traces of someone's great deeds. Gigantic boulders, walls of multi-ton blocks, burial complexes the size of apartment buildings. All this was assembled by the hands of people whose names we will never know. That is exactly what hooks us the most. We see the result, but we do not know the main thing. Who built all this? Why? And how? In many places, the blocks weigh hundreds of tons, sometimes close to 1,000. The stone is fitted so precisely that you cannot slip even a sheet of paper between the slabs. It seems as if the builders were working not with primitive stone hammers, but with something far more serious. Add to this one more strange detail. A number of ancient structures, apparently, are older than the cultures to which their construction is officially attributed. From here arise the inconvenient questions to the familiar chronology. Could it be that before the civilizations we know, there was someone else, more advanced, but almost completely erased from the face of the earth? And exactly here, one of the strongest plots in human memory enters the game: the myth of the Great Flood. In the Sumerian epic of Gilgamesh, the gods wash away humanity in a gigantic inundation. Among the North American Hopi, water washes away a corrupt world. Ancient Chinese legends tell of a great flood that reshaped the landscape. Australian Aboriginal people pass down from generation to generation stories of how the sea rose and cut their lands into islands. These are not just similar fairy tales. These are dozens of cultures, separated by oceans and thousands of years, stubbornly repeating the same motif. A huge water came and destroyed the former world. Some scholars connect this with real events: a sharp rise in global sea level and powerful cataclysms at the end of the last ice age, approximately from 12 to 8,000 years ago. Others remind us that many traditions, including the biblical one, date the flood much later, around the year 2300 BC. If the later date is at least partly correct, a very unpleasant conclusion follows. In the not-so-distant past, there occurred events on a scale sufficient to erase entire cultures. And against this background, the megaliths, that are strangely similar to each other all over the world, begin to look completely different. Huge blocks, dry masonry without mortar, impossible precision, repeating symbols, similar techniques of stone processing, and all this in places separated by thousands of kilometers. Could it be that once there existed a common tradition of megalithic construction, a powerful culture or even an entire network of cultures that were later almost completely washed away by some global catastrophe? Possibly that very flood? In this journey, we will walk through a number of such antediluvian, or at the very least, mysteriously advanced constructions. We will try to look at them not as boring ruins, but as messages left in stone by people whose knowledge we have never fully understood. Make yourselves comfortable. You can just listen. The visuals are not mandatory here. Let us for a while turn off our usual explanations and honestly ask ourselves a question. What if we know far from everything about the past of the Earth? Japan. The floating stone, Ishi no Hoden. We will start not with Egypt and not with Peru, but with Japan. In the quiet wooded hills of Hyogo Prefecture stands an object you are unlikely to see in a school history textbook. It is called Ishi no Hoden, the floating stone. At first glance, it produces the effect of, what on earth is going on? In front of you is a huge granite monolith, approximately 6.4 meters in length, almost 6 in width, and more than 5 meters in height. According to estimates, it weighs about 500 tons, roughly like 3 fully loaded jumbo jets. And at the same time, it creates the impression that the stone is levitating above the water. The monolith stands above a small body of water, and its only support is hidden under the surface, a thin central pillar that is not immediately noticeable. The water works as perfect camouflage. It seems as though a 500-ton boulder is simply hanging in the air. If you come closer, it becomes even stranger. The surfaces of the stone are smooth, with sharp corners and flat planes. Modern Japanese stonemasons frankly admit, even with modern tools, it would not be easy to reproduce such processing. And now, the most interesting part. Who did this? When? And why? There is no clear answer to these questions. No written sources have been found that would unambiguously explain the origin of Ishi-no Hoden. There are no artifacts that would firmly link it to a particular culture either. Instead of history, we have a legend. Local traditions say that the stone was created not by ordinary people. They speak of gods or some beings who came from the heavens, who allegedly could shape stone like soft clay. For a scholar, this is, of course, a myth. But if you switch off your skepticism for a minute, the legend raises an intriguing question. Could it reflect the memory of some very advanced group of people whose real technologies later turned into fairy tales about gods? Japan. The stone ship, Masuda no Iwafun. Not far away in Nara Prefecture, there is another stone surprise, Masuda no Iwafune, the stone ship of Masuda. It is a huge chunk of granite, about 11 meters long, 8 meters wide, and almost 5 meters high. It looks as if it was deliberately carved into a strange shape that does not particularly resemble anything familiar. On its surface, there are symmetrical channels and rectangular recesses, as if someone had pre-marked the stone for some complex construction. Here, the favorite part begins. Is it a foundation? The base of some machine or mechanism? A ritual object? There are many versions, no proofs. There is yet another mystery. Around Masuda no Iwafune, there are no spoil heaps of stone chips that you would logically expect from such processing. This suggests that the stone may have been cut in another place and then transported here. But how? We are talking about dozens of tons of granite, and the official version assumes very simple technologies: ropes, logs, human strength, and again, legends. In the surrounding area, there live stories about an ancient people with amazing knowledge in architecture, astronomy, and medicine. About teachers who came from beyond the sea or from the heavens, taught the locals many arts, and then disappeared as a result of something like a huge flood. Notice, again, the motif of a flood. Again, a hint at forgotten knowledge. Again, stone processed with a precision that does not look much like simple stone axes. Peru. Walls that were not supposed to work out that way. Let us cross the ocean high into the Andes to the ancient forts of Peru. Usually, when people hear ancient ruins, they remember the pyramids of Egypt or Greek temples. But what stands around Cusco is no less impressive, and in some places, even more mysterious. Number 1, Sacsayhuaman. A stone puzzle above Cusco. Just above modern Cusco lies Sacsayhuaman, a gigantic complex of walls and terraces. From a distance, it looks simply like old stone fortifications. But once you get closer, it becomes unsettling. The walls are made of huge limestone blocks, some weighing more than 200 tons. That is like 120 regular passenger cars placed together. But the main point is not even the size, but the fitting. The blocks are laid without cement or mortar, yet the joints between them are so tight that in some places you truly cannot insert a knife blade. Many stones have a dozen or more angled faces and complex curved shapes. These are not simple bricks. This is a three-dimensional puzzle at a crazy difficulty level. The official version says, all this was made by the Inca masters using bronze tools, hammers, and a huge number of workers. Some researchers fully agree with this. But even among archaeologists, there is an honest, we do not completely understand how exactly this was done. Local legends are simpler. Giants placed the stones. The ancients had the ability to soften stone. They made it like plasticine, and then it hardened again. It sounds like a fairy tale, but agree. If you live next to such an object and cannot imagine how ordinary people could have done it, a myth about Titan people arises almost by itself. Ollantaytambo. 6 monoliths and 4 in stone. In the sacred valley of Peru stands another strange monument, Ollantaytambo. Here, on one of the terraces, there is the so-called Wall of 6 monoliths. In front of you are 6 huge granite blocks, each weighing up to 50 tons, perfectly fitted to one another. And here an important detail matters. The granite they are made of is not local. By the marks in the rock, archaeologists have determined that the stone was quarried about 7 kilometers away, on the other side of the valley. To help you grasp the scale of the task, they had to cut multi-ton blocks in the mountains, bring them down the slopes, transport them across a river, and then haul them up again to the place of installation. Even if you imagine winches, loaders, and modern machinery, the task is unpleasant. Now, mentally remove the machinery. The indigenous Quechua tell their own stories. Before the Inca, there was a people of teachers, the Viracochas, who knew how to move stone easily and build for the ages. They supposedly came, taught, and then disappeared, again after some great disaster. Here we again see the familiar set. Stunning stone masonry, no clear explanation of the technologies, legends about more ancient and wise builders. Underwater. Walls off the coast of Syria. To understand that strange walls are not only an Andean specialty, we move to the shores of the Mediterranean Sea, to the ancient island city of Arwad, off the coast of Syria. This place has been known since Phoenician times. That is, it is thousands of years old. But the most curious thing is not on the island itself, but nearby, under the water. In the shallow coastal zone, divers discovered a megalithic wall built from large limestone blocks. The masonry is again familiar. Large blocks, tight-fitting, minimal mortar. The impression that the builders knew very well what they were doing. Today, this wall lies at a depth of several meters. The obvious conclusion. When it was built, there was dry land here. Later, the sea level rose, and part of the ancient building went underwater. The Phoenicians, excellent sailors and merchants, did not leave us a clear description of this wall. But in local traditions, there are stories of an ancient rich people who were washed away by water. Again, advanced masonry, a myth about a perished civilization, and the sea that slowly but surely takes away its traces from us. Circles like an echo. Rugum el Hiri on the Golan Heights. Now we move to the Golan Heights. In a bare, windswept landscape where it seems there should be nothing special, there stands an object with a poetic and slightly creepy name, Rugum el Hiri, the stone heap of the wild cat. From the ground, it really looks like heaps of basalt stones scattered over a field. But as soon as you rise into the air, the picture changes. In front of us is a giant target, a set of concentric stone circles radiating from a central mound. The largest circle is about 160 meters in diameter. The total volume of stone is tens of thousands of tons of basalt. Its age is estimated at about 5,000 years, which means this object is older than many far more famous monuments. The main feature of Rugum el Hiri is astronomy. At the summer solstice, the first rays of the sun pass exactly through the gate of the structure and illuminate the central mound. This is not accidental. This means the builders perfectly understood where and how the sun rises on key days of the year. Later, a burial dated to a later period was found in the central hill. It seems the place was used for a long time, with its functions changing, but the original intention still remains a mystery. Legends of the local Druze and other communities in the area speak of giants who supposedly could build entire cities of stone in a single night. A very familiar image, right? The same stories circulate about Stonehenge, about the megaliths of the Caucasus and Armenia, about cyclopean walls in other parts of the planet. The language of science says, an organized society, good coordination, knowledge of astronomy, an impressive amount of labor. Folklore adds, and maybe there was something being done here by those who were too strong and too smart. Saudi Arabia, the perfect split of Al-Nasla. Now, into the sands of Saudi Arabia. Near Tema, among rocks and dunes, stands one of the strangest stones on the planet, Al-Nasla. Two large sandstone blocks, standing side by side, are divided by a perfectly straight vertical fracture. So straight that many people, seeing photographs, at first think it is a montage. Each half of the stone rests on a small natural base, so that it creates the impression of something completely implausible. Huge blocks seem to balance on tiny legs, and between them is an extremely thin straight seam, as if the stone was cut by a laser. Geologists offer natural explanations: cracks from ancient earthquakes, weathering, water seeping along a weak zone of the rock, different properties of the sandstone layers. All these processes certainly exist, but even specialists admit, such an even line of fracture is a rare stroke of luck by nature. An extra level of mystery lies in the petroglyphs on the surface of Al-Nasla. Figures of animals and people, abstract signs, are carved on the stone. In other words, ancient people clearly noticed this object and considered it important enough to decorate with carvings. Here, there are again two options. The stone split naturally, and people saw in it a sign of the gods and turned the place into a sanctuary. The ancients already found the stone with a crack, or even somehow participated in its creation, possessing technologies of which we know nothing. Local folklore cautiously leans toward the second. In Bedouin, tales appear images of people who know how to subdue stone, who can make a cut with a single touch. Science is not yet ready to agree with such plots, but it does not have a final answer either. So Al-Nasla stands in the middle of the desert, either a joke of geology or a hint at forgotten knowledge. Egypt. The underground. Osireion. A temple that does not fit. Let us leave the deserts of Arabia and return to where, it would seem, everything has already been studied 1,000 times, to Egypt. We are used to the image of Egypt as a land of pyramids, sphinxes, and columns with hieroglyphs. But there is one object there that falls out of the usual picture. We are talking about the Osireion in Abydos, an underground complex behind the temple of Seti I. From above, you see a typical Egyptian temple with familiar reliefs. But a little to the side, below ground level, there's a hall of a completely different type. It is a square chamber with huge granite columns and a rectangular island in the middle, surrounded by water. Each column weighs about 100 tons. They are made of smooth, strictly rectangular blocks, fitted with jeweler's precision. All this without mortar. And the most unusual thing is the almost complete absence of decoration. If you recall ordinary Egyptian temples, their everything is covered with texts and images. Gods, pharaohs, scenes, inscriptions. Against this background, the Osireion looks almost bare. Minimalism, massiveness, and the feeling of an almost alien simplicity. Officially, the complex is attributed to the era of Seti I, around the 13th century BC, but some researchers draw attention to several oddities. The style is very different from the surrounding temple. On the blocks, there are traces of strong water erosion, as if they were in contact with a large quantity of water for a long time. The Egyptians themselves. Dolmen de Soto, a corridor into the light. Let us change the scenery for a moment to something calmer. Southern Spain, gentle hills, fields. Here, near the small town of Trigueros, A monument is hidden that from the outside is easy to miss. The Dolmen de Soto. From the outside, it is just an earthen mound. But inside, there's a long stone corridor, about 21 meters in length, leading to a round chamber. The walls and ceiling are assembled from large stone slabs, some weighing several tons. The main thing that strikes you inside is the engravings. On the walls, there are spirals, figures, lines, abstract symbols. They look deliberate, but we have never decoded their exact meaning. Is it a calendar? A map? Mythological scenes? And here again, astronomy. The entrance to the dolmen is aligned strictly to the east. During the equinoxes, the rising sun penetrates the corridor and illuminates the inner chamber, animating the drawings on the stones. To achieve such precision 5,000 years ago, it was necessary to observe the sun's movement for many years, understand the points where it rises at different times of the year, design and build the corridor so that the rays would reach exactly where needed. This is already not just a burial. It is an engineering and ritual project embedded into the rhythms of the heavens. Ireland. Newgrange. The Tunnel of the Sun. Now we move to northwestern Europe, to the green valley of the River Boyne in Ireland. Here stands a structure that in age surpasses both the pyramids and Stonehenge, Newgrange. From the outside, it looks like a large circular mound about 80 meters in diameter and 13 meters high, encircled by upright stones. The facade is decorated with white quartz and large boulders. But, as with Dolmen de Soto, the magic is inside. A narrow passage almost 19 meters long leads into a central cruciform chamber with 3 niches. On the stones, there are again familiar spirals, zigzags, circles, abstract ornaments. And here one of the most impressive light effects of the ancient world is realized. Every year, on the days of the winter solstice, when the night is the longest and the day the shortest, a special window, a roof box, switches on above the entrance to Newgrange. The sun rises above the horizon. A thin beam enters through this opening, slowly crawls along the passage, and at a certain moment floods the inner chamber with light. On the other days of the year, it is pitch dark inside. So, the builders not only knew when the solstice occurs, but also calibrated the geometry of the structure so that once a year, on specific days, the light would fall exactly where it should. Irish legends say that Newgrange was built by the Tuatha De Danann, the tribes of the goddess Danu, a mythical people possessing magic and incredible skill. According to the story, they either vanished or went into other worlds, leaving after themselves mounds and sanctuaries. In the language of science, this sounds like there were some very early builders with serious knowledge, about whom their descendants later spoke as about gods. One thread for all. Here it would seem, different continents, different epochs, different peoples, yet the motifs are similar. Stone, precision, calibrated astronomy, and almost everywhere nearby. Stories about older, wiser ancestors. Further, it will become even more interesting. We will reach Baalbek with its 1,000-ton blocks, the North American earth giants, and something that will definitely astonish you. Lebanon. Baalbek. Stones. The weight of 2 planes. It is time to raise the weight bar to the maximum. Welcome to Lebanon, to the Bekaa Valley, to the Baalbek complex. Usually it is described as a Roman temple center. Here are the Temple of Jupiter, the Temple of Bacchus, and several other structures, all beautiful, grand, with columns and arches. But the real magic of Baalbek lies below the Roman temples, in their foundation. There lies what is now called the trilithon, 3 gigantic limestone blocks. Each weighs about 800 tons. That is like 2 fully loaded passenger jets, but made of stone. And they are not just lying around somewhere. They are neatly built into a wall, fitted to one another so tightly that you cannot slip a knife or paper between them. A little further away in the quarry lies another monster, the Stone of the Pregnant Woman. Its weight is estimated at about 1,000 tons. Almost 1,000 tons that someone began to cut out and, apparently, intended to transport as well. Modern engineers looking at all this frankly say, people, even with our equipment, this would be a hell of an operation. And now imagine the same with ropes, wooden beams, and muscles. Of course, there are official versions, ramps, thousands of people, a complex system of levers. But even among experts, there is no single answer as to exactly how it was realized. An interesting point: the Romans, who built the temples, did not leave clear records that they themselves laid these giant blocks. Most likely, when they came, the foundation was already there, and they simply decided, oh, a gorgeous platform. Let us build a temple right here. Who then was the first architect? The Phoenicians? Some even earlier culture? Local legends follow the familiar pattern. Giants, demigods, beings of non-human strength. According to tradition, it was they who took the huge stones and laid them as a child stacks toy cubes. Funny? Perhaps. But the fact remains, before us is a piece of work that even today evokes respect and bewilderment from engineers. And again, beyond the obvious explanations. North America, earth giants, and a snake of grass. Let us forget about stone for a while. The ancient builders knew how to work not only with boulders, but also with ordinary earth, turning it into monuments, no less large scale. In North America, there is an entire civilization of earth mound builders, about which many people know almost nothing. Number Eins. The snake from the embankment, Serpent Mound. In the state of Ohio, on the top of a hill, the giant serpent mound winds along the ground. This is not just a pile of earth. It is a precise figure of a snake, more than 400 meters long, with an open mouth and an egg or sun in front of it. From the air, it is seen best. A narrow embankment, repeating the smooth curves of the snake, is carefully laid along the slope. And, as you have probably guessed, the matter does not end with the shape. The bends of the snake coincide with important astronomical points. The head is aligned with the sunset on the day of the summer solstice. Other parts of the body are connected with the positions of the sun and the moon at special moments of the year. To achieve such precision, people had to observe the sky for years and transfer their knowledge onto the land. Who did it? The debates still continue. Different groups of native cultures built mounds at different times, and scholars discuss to whom exactly Serpent Mound belongs. But something else is much more important. The ancient Americans clearly were not backward savages, as they used to be portrayed in old textbooks. They were attentive observers of the sky and could embody their knowledge in huge projects. A city on clay, Cahokia. We move on to the ruins of Cahokia in Illinois. This is no longer just a mound, but a whole city. Thousands of people, dozens of platforms, ritual centers. And most important, Monk's Mound, the largest earthen pyramid in North America. Its height is almost 30 meters. The area of its base is more than 14 hectares. It is as if you built a multi-story building entirely out of earth and compacted soil. Where does such a sense of scale and organization come from? Most likely, this is the center of a complex society, with priests, rulers, and astronomers. Cahokia is a reminder that on the continent where the skyscrapers of Chicago and St. Louis now stand, long before that, there were already their own ancient megacities that we did not suspect for a long time. A lunar compass. Newark earthworks. Another masterpiece, also in Ohio. Once this complex covered about 4 square miles. Gigantic circles, octagons, and embankments formed a huge pattern on the ground, best seen, yes again, from above. The most amazing thing is the precision of the lunar alignments. Some elements of the complex are aligned with the extreme positions of the moon in its rare 18.6-year cycle. Imagine, generations of people observe the moon, record its paths, pass on the knowledge, and then create a gigantic map right in the earth. And all this without writing in the familiar sense. Knowledge was transmitted orally, through rituals, legends, and songs. A native person looking at the sky by a campfire and a modern astronomer in an observatory were essentially engaged in the same thing. They were trying to understand how the world above their heads works. The difference in tools is huge, but the respect for the observant minds of these ancient people should be the same. Peru. The stone towers of Sillustani. Ventilation for eternity. Let us return to Peru. But now, not to walls, but to towers. On the shore of the cold Lake Umayo, not far from Puno, stands the complex of Sillustani. Here, scattered across the plateau, are chulpas, tall cylindrical burial towers. Some reach 10 to 12 meters in height, built of perfectly processed blocks. If you look closely, you will see the same familiar trait. The stones are fitted so that there is almost no gap. The surface is smooth, the corners are sharp. It is believed that nobles, priests, and rulers were buried here. But even for burials, the builders were not lazy to raise the quality to a level of, we want this to stand for thousands of years. An interesting detail. In some towers, systems of ventilation and drainage have been found that allowed the bodies and the objects placed in the tomb to be better preserved. So it is not just about stacking a tower of stones. It is a thought-out engineering design that takes into account the climate, soil, moisture, and time. Local legends speak of the people of the Gentiles, ancient giants who lived before the coming of the sun and who were eventually destroyed by some catastrophe linked to water and cold. Later cultures, they say, came when everything was already ready, using old structures. Again, a memory of ancient builders who were too skillful, who disappeared after a great disaster. China, the underground mega-project of the Longyu Caves now. To China, to Zhejiang province. Here, beneath calm fields and villages, lies one of the most mysterious construction projects on the planet, the Longyu Caves. Until the 1990s, the local residents simply thought they were dealing with deep natural ponds. Until one day, they decided to drain them. Instead of an ordinary bottom, people saw huge underground halls. Today, at least, 24 such caves are known. Each is a gigantic chamber cut into solid rock, with columns, niches, and perfectly even walls. The height reaches up to 30 meters. The area is comparable to that of a small temple, or even a cathedral. All this was not washed out by water, nor carved by wind. The stone was removed by hand. On the walls and ceilings, there are identical parallel grooves covering the surface like shading. They create the impression that someone deliberately left a signature of the tool, a single texture. The strangest thing is the complete absence of historical records. China is a country with an incredibly rich written tradition. They recorded the construction of walls, bridges, and palaces. But about such a gigantic project, not a word. How so? Another puzzle. Inside, they do not find the usual construction debris or traces of soot from torches. It turns out that the stone was taken out somewhere, and we do not know where. Lighting perhaps was not based on open fire, or for some reason the traces did not remain. Local legends speak of an ancient people who hid underground in troubled times and built palaces of stone there. But all that is just fragments. The caves themselves stand silent. We can guess that these were repositories, sanctuaries, or even residences. But there is still no official scenario. Easter Island. Moai. Who is looking at whom? Now, one of the most famous, but no less mysterious monuments of the world. A small volcanic island in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. Thousands of kilometers from the nearest land, this is Easter Island, or Rapa Nui. All over the island stand moai, almost 900 stone statues. Most of them are about 4 meters tall and weigh up to 14 tons. But there are also giants, such as the unfinished El Gigante, almost 20 meters high and weighing more than 200 tons. All of them were carved from volcanic tuff in the Rano Raraku quarry, and then had to be transported to the shore and erected on special platforms. Ahu. How? There are several working versions. They were dragged lying on sleds and logs, rolled on cylinders, set upright and walked from side to side like a refrigerator tied with ropes. The last option has even been partially reproduced in experiments. But it still leaves many questions, especially for the largest statues. The Rapa Nui people themselves said that the statues walked on their own with the help of a special spiritual force. In the language of legends, this means one thing. For inhabitants of relatively recent times, the technologies of their ancestors seemed utterly beyond understanding. For a long time, European scholars told the story of the island like this: people lived, everything was fine, until they destroyed their ecosystem, cut down the forests to transport statues, and in the end, everything collapsed and wars began. Today, the picture is more complex. Yes, resource problems and overpopulation existed, but data have been added about possible droughts, storms, and also about the heavy consequences of European contact, slave raids, diseases. So the civilization of Easter Island most likely did not die from a single factor, but from a combination of blows, both natural and human. But the statues remained. The moai, with empty eye sockets, as if peering into the depths of the island, became a mute metaphor. We existed, we knew how, but something went wrong. Turkey. Göbekli Tepe. A temple built before pyramids and cities. And finally, an object that turned our idea of when exactly people began to build complex sanctuaries upside down. A hill in southeastern Turkey. The name is Göbekli Tepe, pot-bellied hill. From a distance, it seems just another mound. Excavations showed. Beneath the ground, there is a complex of circular and oval structures with huge T-shaped stone pillars. The age is about 11 to 12,000 years. That is, Göbekli Tepe is older than the pyramids of Egypt by about 6,000 years, Stonehenge by about 7,000 years. Each pillar reaches 5 to 6 meters in height and weighs up to 20 tons. And the most important part, many of them are covered with reliefs: foxes, snakes, boars, birds, enigmatic symbols. On one pillar, there is a figure with human features, with something like a bag at its waist. Exactly the same bags will later appear on the reliefs of Sumerians, in Mesoamerica, and in other cultures. What is it? A symbol of knowledge? Some sacred object? What is astounding is that all this appeared at a time when, according to the classical version, people were just transitioning from hunting and gathering to agriculture. Before Göbekli Tepe, it was thought. First, people settled down, started growing grain, building villages, and then, when a surplus of resources appeared, they began to build temples. Here, everything is the other way around. It seems that people first gathered to build a sanctuary, and precisely for that, they were ready to organize, settle, and change their way of life. Another oddity, the complex was deliberately buried. Not demolished, not abandoned, but carefully filled with soil and rubble, as if preserved for the future. Why? We do not know. But around Göbekli Tepe, Related sites are already being found: Karahan Tepe, Navali Chori, and others. This looks not like a random single temple, but like a whole culture with its own rules, symbols, and architecture. The global flood. Myth or memory of an event? Now that we have flown around half the world and seen a heap of strange coincidences, it is time to ask the main question. What if all this is fragments of one big story? From the geological point of view, between roughly 12,000 and 5,000 BC, the Earth went through dramatic changes. The Ice Age ended, gigantic ice sheets melted, and the sea level rose by more than 100 meters. Thousands of kilometers of coastline where people could have lived were simply flooded, and this did not necessarily proceed evenly and smoothly. There were periods of sharp rise when, within 1 or 2 human lifetimes, the sea could swallow enormous stretches of land. If you live in a coastal city, trade, build temples, watch the sky, and then within 1 or 2 generations, the sea comes and washes away your homes. How would you describe it? Most likely like this: a huge water came and destroyed our world. This is exactly what we hear from dozens of myths. The Sumerians, the Flood and the Ark, the Bible, Noah's Ark, Indian legends of Manu and salvation from the waters, Chinese stories of the Great Flood, the tales of Australian Aboriginal people, Polynesians, and the peoples of the Americas. They all speak of the same thing. There was an era when water played a destructive role. Underwater. Shadows of cities. When we look underwater, the picture begins to take shape. Off the coast of Japan, near Yonaguni Island, on the seabed lies an object that many consider to be ruins: terraces, steps, right angles. To this day, there is a debate about how much of it is natural and how much is man-made. Off the coast of India, in the area of the ancient city of Dwarka, submerged structures resembling walls and platforms are being found. Near other coasts, there are their own drowned mysteries. Hoping that down there at the depths, there are whole untouched megacities is of course naive. But everything points to one thing. Before the rise of sea level, some human communities lived on the lands that are now hidden underwater. If these people built, exchanged knowledge, created cult centers, then we are virtually looking at a world in which entire chapters of history have been washed away by the ocean. Common motifs, symbols that travel without ships. There is another oddity: identical motifs in carvings and symbols. We already mentioned the bags on the reliefs of Göbekli Tepe, Sumerian gods and figures in Mesoamerica, snakes, from Serpent Mound to images in Turkey and the Middle East, vultures, lions, spirals, and abstract patterns that appear again and again on different continents. There are 2 major versions: a common human psychology. People everywhere observe the same natural phenomena: the sky, animals, cycles. It is logical that their symbols could be similar. Real cultural connections. Perhaps there were ancient networks of knowledge and symbol exchange far broader than we are used to thinking. Not necessarily a global high-tech civilization, but quite possibly a wide belt of cultures that knew about one another and shared ideas. So far, archaeology honestly admits we have no direct proof of a single world empire of Atlanteans. But we do have more and more finds that do not fit into the simple picture of here there were savages, here there were smart Greeks, and then there were us. The world of antiquity, it seems, was more complex and interesting than a school chart. What is actually proven and what is not? It is important to separate. We know for sure that there existed ancient societies on Earth capable of astonishing engineering solutions without modern technology. The sea level rose significantly and flooded vast territories. Many ancient structures are clearly aligned with the sun, the moon, and the stars. Almost all peoples with ancient traditions have myths about a great flood or catastrophe. We do not know for sure, whether there once was a single highly developed civilization that spread its knowledge across the whole planet, whether the ancients really possessed some accelerated stone-working technologies that we have completely lost, whether all these megaliths are directly connected to each other, or if this is a coincidence of common human tasks and observations. But, to be honest, the most interesting thing is not in hard proofs, but in the fact that all these objects force us to ask questions. And now a question for you. Which of the places we talked about impressed you the most? The quiet Osireion beneath the Egyptian temple? The stones of Baalbek that seemingly nobody had the right to move? Or something else? Do you believe that global floods really could erase entire civilizations? Or do you think everything can be explained by more down-to-earth reasons? Gradual development, local catastrophes, and forgotten technologies? Be sure to write in the comments everything you think about this and subscribe to the Top Facts channel for selections of the most incredible facts and videos from all over the internet on different topics. Thank you for watching.